I've been told by everybody up on this roof that they're all off the roof. I am on the roof of exposure 4. Got fire through the roof of the fire building in the entire rear section.
Now remember, given the payday, has he been accounted for? Kate.
610B. That was the Mayday. 610B.
I'm here. We got a fire. 1.5-story, single-family dwelling. Fire shown from the second floor. Give me a second alarm on this.
Coming up to the top floor. I got people hanging out the top floor windows with a baby.
Commercial building. A lot of fire, a lot of smoke. Go ahead and strike a third alarm on my orders on this.
Got people on the front fire escape here with windows vented below them. We need somebody up there.
Yeah, let them know we got a job. I'm pulling up now. Second alarm, I got a 1-story single-family frame. Heavy fire showing from the attic.
So we're using all hands. We got one line stretch, fire on the 4th floor. Second line being stretched. Primary searches are underway.
Hey, welcome to Old School. I'm Chief Rick Lasky, along with my partner, Chief John Salka. And John, we are in Florida for a CSU Company Officer Academy. Another great job with Nikki and Mimi. Another great crowd. How about the Chief today? What an awesome boss down here, Mariana.
Absolutely, absolutely. We've talked about that before. We do lots of programs. We do lots of Company Officer Academy programs around the country with CSU and some without, but more with them than ever. And we have great diverse crowds. And more we're noticing the fire chief, the number one man in the fire department, sitting through the class 1 day, 2 day, 3 days at a time, unless something that was already on the calendar happens or something happens at City Hall that he's got to pay attention to. But we had the chief right from Ariana, right in class today, and he was
welcomed everybody.
Absolutely participated, made a few comments during the class, as some of the other folks did, and he had some of his staff there as well. There were 3 or 4 white shirt chiefs there, guys from headquarters and and for us as 2 guys that travel around the country and meet all sorts of folks from all sorts of size departments, it's always a pleasure to see some solid support and actually attendance from the top, from headquarters. Not just a couple of lieutenants and captains attending, but their chiefs sitting there as well. Yeah, it was great.
And he did. He jumped in about some social media stuff, and he's taking notes. And I mean, just first of all, it's an awesome group. We have a packed room here. No extra chairs. That we couldn't fit anybody if we wanted to. It's been great. We talked about, in fact, one of our last shows, again, we're talking old school, was up in Canada, right outside Edmonton, with our buddy at Moorville, Brad, the chief there, and another great group. And, one of the things I found amazing, John, you and I have talked about this. I'll be honest with you, we've said this. We both love our Canadian brothers and sisters. We do. Our fire service, their fire service is one. There's a blurry line that we've said this before that separates us, and that's all it is on a map. I haven't had much success in the past with not being harassed at the Toronto airport by Borders and Customs, and I do the whole, from Seinfeld, the whole soup Nazi thing, yes sir, no sir, all that stuff. But Calgary, going through customs. Granted, I've got my Nexus, and you've got your global entry coming back, but going through their security, it was actually they were some of the most polite. Professional, accommodating. It's like, no, sir.
We were loaded for bear, and actually we were fretting a little bit. Not that we were doing anything wrong at all, but you having had a couple of not so great experiences. I've never really had one, but I've certainly heard of a couple of challenging experiences and sort of ridiculous conversations with some of the people there from guys like us that are going across to attend conferences and stuff. But we were so pleasantly surprised by the professional, friendly, helpful attitude of everyone there. Frankly, I had a better time going across the border from the United States to Canada in Calgary than I do sometimes getting on my plane through TSA in Newburgh, 9 miles from my house. Sometimes those people are a little bit more difficult to work with than the folks we encountered in Calgary. I just have to say we had a great time.
Well, and I've told you before, I've bragged about it, and granted, my little airport, DFW, Dallas, a lot of TSA people there, and I had some great experiences there, but I love my TSA agents at Wichita Falls, and they're great. And it's kind of funny because, you and I have talked about this. Golly, before 9/11, traveling through the States on the airplanes and through airports was like
a bunt.
Could you imagine before 9/11 if we had implemented the security system? People would be screaming at the top.
Rioting. They'd be rioting.
And it took 9/11 for us to figure out that just how easy it was for people, obviously, to get through and do some pretty horrible things. But, the government adjusted. We talked about the funding. it was just National Police Week, and God bless them. We love our police officers, those in law enforcement, period. The funding, I've said before, they're better at marketing than us because they know how to go out and market their mission. We sit back thinking we're the fire service still, and people just bring us It's a Wonderful Life, the big baskets of money, and dump them, on the table at the end. And it's not true. You've got to get out there and be embedded. But, the amount of funding that we spend, again, rightfully so in law enforcement, but I just feel like on the fire side, and this may sound a little whiny, but I don't think we get our fair share. When it comes to, there's just under 40,000 fire departments in the United States, volunteer career. We've got firefighters out there with no portable radios, without the right bunker gear, without the protection.
35-year-old rigs.
Just some of the, and I know part of
I
this.
stood on dirt floors in apparatus bays.
Yeah, and there are grants, but look, I don't care who you are. It's not that easy. It's not that easy to write a grant. It's not that easy for some of these smaller departments that desperately need the stuff to operate to do it. Right. But here's something I want to ask you. You've mentioned this in class before. I've seen you ask students, John. You've asked them how many people died on 9/11, and right away they spit out the number what?
Well,
and we know why, but
a lot of quick responses are 343 because we in the fire service are so focused on our particular loss that day. Devastating, gigantic loss compared to even law enforcement and other federal agencies and things like that for that particular day. But we all know that's not the answer. We all know the real answer is 3,000 Americans died that day. Give or take. It's not an exact.
And we're talking 9/11. We're talking. I'm sorry. New York City. Right. We're talking the Pentagon. We're talking Shanksville.
Correct.
Because and I can understand a lot of people. You mentioned 9/11. Horrible event in New York City, but we forget sometimes what happened at the Pentagon. And we forget about the brave people in a plane that took it down in Shanksville.
And the three planes, it was a tragedy all
the
way around.
The airline pilots, the flight attendants that were doing their job, some pretty brave people.
Absolutely.
But 3,000 people, John.
And there's the key, and that's today's subject.
On one day.
And that's today's subject. Within an hour of each other or two, though, that many people were murdered. That many people would die in a terrorist incident. Now, we're not here to talk about terrorism tonight. We're here to talk about the number 3,000. So 3,000 people died on 9/11, and it changed America. It changed where billions of dollars are spent. It changed the whole industry, the whole travel industry,
right,
or at least the airline industry. I don't think it changed, I don't think it changed the railroad industry much and highways and things like that. But certainly the airline industry, which is exactly where it happened. That was the tool that they used, right? The airline industry. But let's get back to the number again now. We're not here to talk about 9/11. We're just using 9/11 as the standard. 3,000 people died on 9/11, and it changed America. It changed a lot of federal agencies, changed a lot of federal laws. It changed the whole airline industry and how every single plane, every single pilot, every single airport, every single parking lot, every single ticket, it changed everything. 3,000 people on one day, almost 20 years ago. Now let me ask you another question. How many people die in fires? Not car accidents, not earthquakes, not hurricanes, not floods, in fires. And you know what the answer is? 3,000 people. Now we're averaging, we're generating, but I must tell you, in the last couple of years, it has spiked. It's up over 3,200 in the last couple of years. So let's just go with the number 3,000. So since 9/11, and I'm here to tell you it's true. Look the numbers up and come up with the number yourself. About 3,000 people have died every year since 9/11. Some a little bit more, some a little bit less. 20 years times 3,000. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. That's 60,000 people. That's a whole city have died.
And they brought up. I mean, if you go to the U.S. Fire Administration, to FEMA, if you go to the statistics there, and they post, because we were a year behind in 2017, because how the stats run, it was 3,400 deaths. That was up 9.6% from
year before.
Actually from 2008, how they do the decade. But I guess. And here was the dollar loss. The dollar loss in 2017 was $23 billion. $23 billion. Now,
you and I have talked about this, and I've written about it. My friend Butch Cobb, after retiring from Jersey City as a staff chief, he was a field deputy chief and made it into the staff chief operations for a while and got out. And he worked for ISO, Insurance Service Organization, for several years after he retired from the fire department. And he became pretty enlightened on that whole organization and a lot of statistics. And the losses, the dollar losses to fire in the United States for just about every year for the past 30 or 40 or 50 years, with the exception of 1 or 2 years, and I believe Hurricane Sandy was one of the years. So eliminate that 1 year. Every year for the past 30 or 40 years, the dollar loss in America to fires is greater than the dollar loss to everything else combined. Hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, you name it. You name it. All those things put together don't add up to the dollars lost to fire, number one. So much for this dwindling fire thing that we have. All the mayors and city managers tell you, oh, fires are down, and we're all EMS agencies. So whether fires are down or not, and we'll talk some other time about when they're down from. They're all talking about that 10-year peak, that 10-year spike in history that'll never happen again. But I don't want to get distracted from the point. But 3,000 people have died every single year since 9/11, and certainly before 9/11. It's a much longer trend than that. And here's the question. Now, we've been talking for a while already, but here's the question of the night. And why are we not addressing this? Why is this not a hot button issue? Why is this not brought up at every conference, at every debate, at every discussion? Why every month in different magazines do we have the line of duty deaths for the month, and they talk about the 3 guys that died here, the 2 guys that died there, and the 1 guy that died there? Why aren't we tracking civilian deaths? Why is it like, holy cow, 259 people died in January in the United States?
And if they are doing it, it's not as you and I are pretty good. I'm sure it's out there somewhere. Obviously, if you go to the U.S. Fire Administration, you look up statistics.
But you have to wait for the end of the year to get those. They're not keeping track of it as it's going along.
You've got to look at this. I mean, and again, let me just be clear on something. When we talk about the dollar loss in 2017, that also takes into consideration a lot of money lost in and I think it was like $10 billion in the Northern California wildland fires. But John, that was
remember the wildland fires are fires. Fires are fires.
Well, exactly, and in the fires, if you count it all up, 2017, it was 1,319,500. Again, and they say it's funny. They go, it was down to 6.2% from 2008, almost 10 years earlier, but fire deaths was up 9.6%. Right. Dollar loss was up 12%. So you're exactly every time you said that, it's made so much sense to me. You said, you know what, they may say fires are down, and you know what, the numbers may actually be down a little bit. But dollar loss is high, and it's actually increasing, as well as
fire deaths
and
are
fire deaths
skyrocketing, and the fact that they're skyrocketing is simply a fact. I don't pretend to be here to come up with the reason or the cause for that. However, the serious question is, so what are we going to do about it? We are the fire service. I mean, we're building cabs now because of we're worried about contamination of firefighters from smoke and soot at fires. We're worried about firefighters killing themselves from firefighter suicide. There are a lot of new issues that are coming up in the last couple of years that people, I don't want to say are harping on because they're legitimate issues, but there are some issues that are getting a lot of press time and a lot of articles and a lot of discussions being made. And there's 3,000 people, 3,000 Americans, 3,000 citizens are dying every year in fires with little or no comment from the fire service. I find that quite disappointing. The fact that we in the fire service, we don't like to lose, we like to win, we like to provide better service to our customers. How can you say the word customers? And I must tell you, most classes I go to, you and I travel all around the country, sometimes together, sometimes individually. We have classrooms sometimes with between 50 people, 80 people, 100, 200, 300. Every time I do a class, when it fits into the mood, when it fits into the topic, I'll ask the question, who knows how many people died in fires in America in the last year?
And these are fire service professionals.
And these are fire service professionals who are coming out and spending their own time and their own dime, going to conferences, going to classes, and spending a day or 2 or 3 with us. These are people that are into the job. People of every rank, from chiefs to company officers to firefighters. Nobody knows the answer. Nobody knows the answer. I have a room of 150 people, nobody raises their hand. I ask for a guess, and people come up with obscenely low numbers. So the question arises. The question still is there. I've already said it. I'm going to say it again. Why is this? Why is the American Fire Service satisfied? Why are we content? Why are we not in an uproar over 3,000 people dying, not last year in a spike, every single year for the past 10 or maybe 20 years. We absolutely lose our minds if 15 more firefighters die next year and bring us over 100 again. Guys lose their minds. Oh my God, we're over 100. What about the 16 initiatives? What about cancer? What about suicide? Oh my God, the end is near. And 3,000 people die and there's not a whisper from the back of the room. Psst, what about the 3,000 families that lost people last year? I'm a little upset by it, and I have been beating the drum. You've been saying
this for years now.
Yeah, absolutely.
For years now, and again, it's something that you sit here, you go, we've got some great leaders out there, in the fire service doing some great things for us. But why are we not? And here's the other thing. Let me bring up another side to this. Fire chiefs going in to sell their city council, their mayor, the city manager's office on new apparatus, more staffing or whatever, and they're stumbling sometimes on their words because they don't know how to justify it or whatever. And I'm like, we've got the numbers to justify it. And the next time a city council member tells you, well, fires are down, you go, you know what? Yeah, if you want to talk about to the heydays in the 70s and early 80s when they were banging them out in the big cities and stuff like that,
from 72 to 82. Yeah, that's when fires are down compared to 1972 to 1982. The numbers were declining then, but that was it. That was the peak. That was the peak in New York City and in lots of other places, Detroit and Chicago. LA, that was the peak. And that's what they're comparing everything to. It's 2019.
How long ago was that?
We're in another century now.
Yeah.
We're in a different century, and they're still talking about that 10 years.
Exactly.
And it's really unjust. It's really not fair to the fire service.
And I'm just, and it's just, I don't know, I'm just befuddled, if that's the right word, over where is the argument? Where is the, it's kind of like the same thing, and you actually hear more about this, but residential sprinklers. And Captain John Drennan's wife is very outspoken about fire prevention, about sprinklers, things. And then you go, okay, how many buildings, how many deaths, how many fires would have been prevented if the home was just sprinklered? And then you get into the whole Builders Association, they don't want to go along with it because it costs them money, and all the lies and stories about leakage and flooding, all that crap that's just lies. And you go, where's the fight there? And it ends. It ends at most governors' desks because they don't want to. I know some governors, that's their biggest contributors, the Home Builders Association, their campaign,
or the construction folks,
and they're not going to sign off on it. And I'm like, it's not sign off on it. Doesn't it actually help? Anyway.
What more evidence do we need? So what do you have, Chief? So what do you have, United States Fire Departments? What do you have? Well, we get two big statistics here. We get civilians dying in fires, citizens dying in fires. Here's the numbers: 3,000 a year, 60,000. If you do 3,000 times 20 years, it's a lot of people, right?
Exactly.
And the highest dollar loss of any other catastrophe. You take fires and put it against all the other things added together. All the other things added together. Fires is just a single topic. How many dollars are lost in the United States, the value of buildings and property and everything else. And then you compare hurricanes, earthquakes, floods. We've had some tragic, gigantic catastrophes in the United States in the past 5 or 10 years, all around the country. And all of them together don't add the dollars lost to fire. What more does anybody need than gigantic cataclysmic dollar losses and 3,000 innocent civilians dead? I'm reminding you now that this day next year, this day in May in 2020, 3,000 people that are alive today, possibly listening to this blog, or traveling to work, or in school, in night school, or picking up their children somewhere. 3,000 people that are alive and hearts beating and breathing air today will be in the ground next year.
And I don't know if it's because it didn't happen all in one day and it's spread out over a year that it just doesn't get the attention, because you and I have tried to figure this out. Because if you look again with the stats, for the U.S. Fire Administration, FEMA.gov, if you look for 2017, 3390. Then you back it up a year, 3280, 3240. Now it dropped down 2012 to 2855. That's still a hair under 3,000. The year before that, 3,005. The year before that, 30,120. 3,010, 3,320. It goes on and on and on.
I'm telling you, it goes back 15 or 20 years, hovering right above, right below, or right at that 3,000
John, I'm not as God, this is gonna sound horrible, folks. Don't please think of me that way. But I'm not as I don't know as heartburn with the dollar loss and people not knowing that as much as I am the 3,000 plus fatalities.
Human cost.
I just and these are we're talking senior citizens. We're talking little babies, people that went home or went to bed,
families,
not thinking they were going to burn to death or die due to smoke inhalation or not wake up. Some and then we got the multiple deaths with 3-4 kids and the parents and just and that brings up everything from smoke detectors to sprinklers, just
the
simple.
whole gamut. It's smoke detectors, it's sprinklers, it's response times, it's staffing, it's all sorts of
And what
things.
do they do? What do they do when they have a multi-family fatality? This is every big city, every little city. They go out, they canvass the neighborhoods and the neighborhood and make sure let's do a smoke detector check and install them. Like, well, and I know this has been a battle. Better than 80% of smoke detectors not working at one point in time, but. We finally are making them now where you can't really take the batteries out and use them for
buy
other
this,
things.
got a 10-year battery. You don't have to even worry about it.
Exactly. And we're doing that. And it's just how sad that little babies and grandmas and grandpas and people like that, seniors, have to die, period, let alone due to fire. And then I sit there and go, and then it brings me back, John, to what we were said originally. and again, it sounds so whiny-ish about our fair share, but you and I travel and we see fire departments with crappy ass gear. We see fire departments where the driver and the officer, the only two that have radios. We just went through this.
Absolutely.
Their training dollars are the first thing that's cut. How to train firefighters to save people's lives and take care of their communities is the first thing that's cut. And not the bird watching park. And that's, oh my God, there's so many stories I could tell you of projects that were funded when they were cutting public safety, especially the fire department. It's always like, so what can we cut the fire department this year? Well, first thing is training. That makes a lot of sense. Let's cut the training. Let's cut the money that we put in there to help our firefighters train to be better at protecting the people out there. And I'm just kind of amazed at some of the little pet projects that some of the city council members and other people get instead of funding the damn fire service. And I've said it. There's some fire chiefs, unfortunately, that have their priorities out of whack too, because they're driving. Oh my God, you ought to see these fire SUVs they have. Oh my, they're just, just every kind of light and fax machines and disco balls and latte machines and all this crap in there. And they're guys that wearing crappy gear and radios. And I've said this in class. You should have bald tires on your fire chief's car. You should have that. Bald tires before getting a new one. If their guys are wearing crappy gear, don't have radios, don't have the right tools. Rigs are rigs. $1 million plus, $700,000 for engines and the ladders. I understand that. That's a big. That's why we should be taking care of our stuff better too. But to not equip your firefighters with the basic needs they need to do their jobs, and to really go out there, and I see this. New York City has really turned up. Hats off to your guys. I follow them, and they are out there. They're doing things in neighborhoods. They're doing stuff. They're out there, shaking the trees, if you will, and telling people, look, and I'm seeing a lot more proactiveness on getting out there and smoke detectors and different things that I've seen a long time. And hats off to them. Same thing in Chicago. Chicago Fire Department's doing it. And I will say this: all these, what people used to call archaic when it came to fire prevention methods, are kind of leading the way for a lot of us now. When you look, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist. You want to get out there. You want more support from the public. Get out there and go check on their grandparents. Get out there and go check smoke detector batteries. Go out there and check smoke detectors. Period. How about CO detectors? And all that kind of,
We got places that aren't even going out and checking their hydrants, the tools that they use to put fires out, the tools that keep not only the public safe, but us safe as well, our water supply and our domestic, places that have domestic water supply systems. You can't even get some fire departments to go out and check the hydrants, which is one of the most important things you'll need if you do get a structural fire. How are we going to convince them to go into people's homes and knock on the door and press their test button on their smoke detector to see if, whether it be a senior citizens housing or young families on the other end of town? I mean, so the point is, I think it's really, I think our focus, I think we've lost focus really with what's going on. I think we've lost focus with the mission. So I really think it comes down to clarifying the mission. And I think the mission of the fire service, and we've said this hundreds of times in our class, the mission of the fire service should be service. It's about service. It's about service to the public, service to our customers, service to our citizens and our visitors and our travelers and our businesses. We're in the service business. Yet every month in all the magazines, doesn't matter what magazine we're talking about, every month in all the magazines, I challenge you to find an article. How are we going to reduce firefight? How are we going to reduce civilian line of duty deaths? How are we going to make America safer? How can you make your community safer? Instead, and I'm not knocking it because I know firefighter safety and survival is that's how we met each other, and we still do it to this day. But I think there's I don't want to say an overemphasis, but I think if you just do the math problem, if you just count the number of articles about firefighter safety and survival, how many of us are dying, preventing firefighter cancer, clean cabs, all the things that all relate to us surviving and us not getting sick. And then count the articles about search and rescue, aggressive interior attack, things that save civilians at fires. And I think the numbers are overwhelmingly against the civilian side and for us saving us and us helping us and us protecting us. Well, and I think it's important that we do that.
You did an article.
I think it's way out of whack.
You did an article. If I remember right, the title was
"We Are Number Two."
We are number two.
That was my article.
And I remember you saying, John, and we talked about in class that, this whole number two thing is, or number one thing is nonsense. Now, when you say nonsense, meaning at a fire, you want to talk about us being number one? Yeah. When your bosses take care of you, when your company officers train you, when firefighters learn their jobs, when guys are into the job,
when
the guys and the gals,
good equipment and a second pair of gear and gloves.
Exactly.
Right.
That's what we're talking. You know what? There you go. You want to worry about number one first, then train your people, take care of your people, be the best damn chief and company officer you can for your folks. But like you said, you pull up at 2 a.m. and there's a mom up there waving her arms. You pull up and she says her 10-year-old son ran back in that burning house for a dog. And you said it so perfectly. You said, you take your helmet off to put your face piece on. Look inside. There's not a number one in there. There's a number two in there. The number one is the kid. Now, you get in there. You
suddenly slid from number one to number two. We want you to be safe. We want you to have a safe response.
Oh, God, yes,
we want you to
please.
have the newest, best, heaviest weight turnout gear, meaning heaviest, Nomex for protection. We want you to have the best gloves and all the positive stuff. We want you to have that. But the minute you get somewhere in a civilian's life or several civilians' lives are now hanging in the balance, you better know that you quickly take a step into the number two slot and you have to put it on the line. You have to risk it. We're so good at reciting that. We're so good at saluting. We're so good at telling people how dangerous the job is that we have and that we're willing to go further and we want to protect you and where what stands between you and death or you and destruction. And guess what? When the situation arises, and it doesn't arise all that often for everybody, that's when you got to put up. That's when you got to say, guess what, boys? And you've heard it said, it's time to earn your money. Whether you're getting paid, whether you volunteer, whether you're on call, it's time to earn your money. This is where it counts. And guess what? That's when you got to buckle down and go in there knowing that it's extremely dangerous. Knowing whatever adjective you want to use.
The men and women that are doing this need to realize you're their last resort.
That's right.
These people call you, they provide you through their tax dollars with gear and stuff to do what you can do. You're their last resort.
After you, there's nothing.
In the absence of the fire service,
right?
Hallelujah. But
and you've told stories. You've told firefighters rescuing other firefighters, and our buddy Deputy Chief Jay Jonas from the FDNY has got a whole series of articles out there, series of stories about firefighters going into jobs and making dramatic rescues and really risking it all. And some coming out, injured and tattered. And that's, we don't look forward to that. We don't want that. We want to avoid it. We want to resist it. We don't want it to happen ever again. But the reality is, the work that we do is very dangerous. And there are some elements of danger sometimes that we have to go into, clear-eyed and constant and focused and well-trained, but we still have to go into them. Sometimes we have to walk into a dangerous situation.
And you know what? And this sounds like a perfect topic for one of our future shows to jump on this whole, when do we go, when do we not go, assessing tactics and strategy, all that different stuff like that. My question is, as we wrap things up here, John, is, look, every year I think it's difficult to come up with different catchphrases for the NPA, and they're doing their best they can for Fire Prevention Week and Fire Prevention Month in October, which every month should be Fire Prevention Month. But, one of the first ones that I've come along with a long time that I really like that's come along a long time is this whole close the door campaign, because everybody's got doors. Not everybody has smoke detectors that are working, and the quickest route to maybe doing this is teaching people, keep the doors closed, close the doors behind you, don't allow fire spread, so and so, and that kind of stuff.
And you know what? It's a direct action to help save civilian lives. Those doors closing are not helping the firefighters. They're helping the people that are in the house. They're saying, close your door at night, close your kids' doors, close your doors. And if you can't hear the smoke detector because you closed the door, then I guess you need another one in your room.
And exactly.
But it's an effort. It's a great effort by the NFPA to directly reduce the number of civilian fire fatalities.
And it's something that anybody can do. You don't have to screw something to your ceiling right now. So if you really want something, for all these years, it's never changed about who has working smoke detectors and who doesn't. But everybody has the ability to close a door. Keep a door closed in your kid's bedroom, your bedroom, or whatever. And if you leave, all these different things, so on and so forth. So I guess the big push is there. I guess if we were going to finish things up, what you and I are looking for really is for the rest of the fire service, and I won't say the rest, I should say the majority of the fire service, because there are some good folks out there, the Don Abbotts, and
there are a lot of great folks out
there that are
working.
talking about the same stuff you and I are. But
Yes.
you know what? It's a very small
It's a
group.
small voice.
So maybe our appeal, all right, here's old school coming back to you, because we used to do all the time. We used to say, look, all I have is my wish and want from you to go out there and do this better. Let's go out and let's market our mission better. Let's go out there and make sure, let's not go out there and throw dead bodies around the council chambers like we used to talk about when, people are going to die and all this. Let's go out there and you have the statistics like we talked about with Bill Carey from Firefighter Nation, data, not drama. We've got the numbers. This isn't something we're making up where you have to go, God, John, someone should really start doing some statistics. We have the numbers that you can go in and you can talk to and
Decades
you can justify.
of numbers.
It doesn't mean they're going to turn over and say, oh, sure, we'll give you everything now. But you know what? If you're going to go in and fight for something, have enough ammunition to sustain the fight.
And you know what? I got over 40 years in the fire service, and I remember my early years in the fire service looking at the numbers. And if you look far enough back at the numbers, firefighting fatalities were in the 170s and 180s back then. Now they're down to the 80s and 90s, and now breaking 100 again. But the point is, we've cut them almost in half. Why have we not cut civilian fire deaths in half in the same amount of time?
Right.
I know it's an awesome question. It's a big question. I'm sure there's not a simple answer to it. But the point is, I think we should be focusing on it. And I think you listeners should be paying attention to it and focusing and asking a few more questions, and ask your fire department, ask your fire chief, ask your company officers, what are we doing differently? What are we doing better? What are we doing faster and more aggressively and maybe more frequently that might save a life rather than maybe make us a little bit safer,
Exactly. Well, hey, another one, another episode of Old School. We've got so many things, and folks, there's no script, as you can tell. There's no script.
We just started. This is episode number 3, and we're going to keep banging them out, and we're going to keep talking about hopefully interesting, captivating topics that you are as interested maybe as we are.
Exactly. So hey, if you need me, right now, I think if you went to my website, prideandownership.com, it's got my email address, got my phone numbers on there, my address, everything, so on and so forth. They could go to your website, John.
My website is johnsalka.com, and if you want to email me, it's chiefjohnsalka@gmail.com.
They've got it all. So hey, until our next show, our next Old School show, we just want to wish you all a safe journey in this great profession, volunteer career. Doesn't matter. You're both professionals. Thank you for what you do. And we never end any of our shows without reminding folks that never forgetting means never forgetting. Be careful, and God bless you. Talk to you next time.